Welcome into Locked On Phillies. Bryce Harper has successful Tommy John surgery. What does it mean for the team? When will he be back? How worried should we be about it? All these questions I'm going to dive into on a very Bryce Harper heavy episode of Locked On Phillies.
You are Locked On Phillies, your daily Philadelphia Phillies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, this is indeed Locked On Phillies. I'm your host, Connor Thomas. Been talking Phillies baseball for years on 97.5 The Fanatic on the radio. Former collegiate and semi-pro baseball player myself. Happy to be here with you as your host of Locked On Phillies. I hope you all had a happy Thanksgiving yesterday. I appreciate you bearing with me because I recorded a couple episodes before the holiday break so that I could have content for you, but obviously not the most timely content because we got the news on Wednesday evening that Bryce Harper had indeed undergone successful Tommy John surgery. But hope you had a great holiday. I'm thankful for each and every one of you out there listening. Also very thankful. We just hit 500 subscribers on Locked On Phillies on YouTube. So thank you so much. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel yet, 500 of your closest friends are saying, dog, you got to check this out. So go ahead and continue to subscribe to the YouTube if you haven't already. Thank you to everyone who already has. Significantly appreciative of that. But let's jump into the Bryce Harper thing. And this is going to be pretty much all that I cover in this entire episode. There are a lot of thoughts about the Bryce Harper injury. First off, I'm going to tell you why the Philadelphia Phillies will be absolutely fine. Now, Bryce Harper underwent successful Tommy John surgery. Got his elbow taken care of, right arm, everything squared away there. So he's in his sling already seen a picture of him in that big sling for Tommy John surgery. What does it mean for his return time? Well, the initial reports were they were hoping to have him hitting competitively back in late May of 2023, obviously, late May of the 2023 season. Now it sounds like they are going to be happy to have him back before the All-Star break, so sometime there in June. Everything going on as far as the end of the month of June, see how that fits in to the time frame. So May, June, July, probably not late into July, but May or June seems to be the time frame for when he will return to hitting. As far as playing the field, probably won't be until August or September. So some point this next season, I expect we're going to see Bryce Harper in the outfield somewhere, but we're still waiting to get him back even to hit until a couple months into the season, a month or two into the season, depending on how it breaks. Sorry, I got something in my eye again. This always happens to me when I pop on here. I wonder if there's something in my ceiling that like drops on me. Anyway, back to the Bryce Harper. My eye injury is not important. The Bryce Harper injury absolutely is, though. So here's why the Philadelphia Phillies are fine. If he's back in late May or late June even, the Philadelphia Phillies still have July, August, September, and part of October. 3.5 months of the season, we'll call it, will be remaining when Bryce Harper comes back. Think about where the Philadelphia Phillies were with a really, really bad start at that point this past season. Plenty of time to make up ground. The Philadelphia Phillies are going to be all right in the Bryce Harper absence. They were this past year. I don't think the Phillies are a better baseball team without Bryce Harper. I don't think it's a good thing that Bryce Harper is missing time. Neither of those are hot takes. But I don't want you to misconstrue what I'm saying that, oh, they don't need Bryce Harper. No, Bryce Harper is a huge part of this team. What I think is that with the offseason I assume they're going to have, which includes bringing in Trey Turner or one of the other top shortstops, and filling out the back end of the roster with maybe another utility guy, a better bullpen than what you had last year, another veteran starter. I think this roster is going to be more than talented enough to withstand an extended absence from Bryce Harper. That's the first part. The second part that I want to get into that makes me feel like the Philadelphia Phillies are fine, and I did this today on the John Kincaid show this morning, 97.5 The Fanatic. Went through the lineup with Bryce Harper out. And just off the top of my head, here's how I would imagine the Philadelphia Phillies lineup is, and I'm going to assume that Trey Turner is indeed a part of this team. I'm just going to jump to that assumption because I do not believe that Edmundo Sosa will be the opening day shortstop for the Philadelphia Phillies. So let's say Trey Turner's here. If you don't have Harper, your lineup probably looks like Trey Turner batting leadoff, Rhys Hoskins batting second. Kyle Schwarber, I'm going to bat third just to get the lefty in there. I'll bat JT Realmuto cleanup. We'll bat Nick Castellanos or Alec Boehm fifth. Derek Hall will DH and bat sixth for me. Seventh will be Nick Castellanos playing right field. Schwarber obviously playing left field because Derek Hall is DHing. Then I need 8 and 9 because that's seventh. Yeah, and then we're going to have Bryson Stott bat eighth. We're going to have Brandon Marsh bat ninth. I know that's a lefty heavy bottom of the lineup, but still, it's kind of what you got without Bryce Harper there. I'd rather than like playing Matt Vierling in left to move Kyle Schwarber to a designated hitter spot, I'd rather give Derek Hall some opportunities there because he can leave the yard, and having him and Kyle Schwarber in the same lineup adds to the pop and everything like that. But even if it is Vierling in left, Schwarber DHing, and then you just put Vierling down a little bit lower in the lineup, that's a talented lineup. That's a lineup that's going to compete with any team in baseball. Turner, Castellanos, Schwarber, Hoskins, Realmuto, Stott, someone else like Castellanos. Like, come on, guys. I talked to you about this at length over the course of this past season, right? When the Phillies were struggling, when they were sliding at the end, in the middle, when they were playing really well. Constantly, the same thing is list out the names of the players on this baseball team. They sound like a playoff baseball team. And in baseball, there's such a long season that the teams that sound like playoff teams, way more often than not, are playoff teams. They're still super talented without Harper. With Harper, with an addition of Trey Turner, they could be a super team this year. So, yeah, they'll be able to withstand Bryce Harper's time away in injury. And frankly, this is good news for the Philadelphia Phillies, this time frame that it is. The successful Tommy John surgery and everything like that, he's getting everything fixed. There's not going to be like, it was a partial tear, so we're going to have him rehab it and hope that it holds out and try and work him back. No, he's fixing the problem, and you're getting him to a position where he'll be able to play the field at some point this year, even if that is way late in the season. He'll be back ready to DH as he continues to rehab, and you get Bryce Harper back. It's a little bit of downtime, but that also hopefully means that the wear and tear on his body that you get over the course of a regular season isn't there this year. Think about the last couple seasons. There's always been something that's knocked him out for a period of a couple weeks, to what happened this past year where he was out a month with a broken thumb. He's not, I wouldn't say Bryce Harper's injury prone, but the way he plays the game, he plays in such a violent manner. It swings so hard. Even the way he plays the field and lays out, and not the cleanest, smoothest fielder, he puts himself at risk for injury. Maybe with some time off, is also going to see his body be a little bit more rested than what we would normally see near the end of the year. And we saw what it was when he was tired with no elbow at the end of the year. He's the best hitter on the planet. So that could be a silver lining as well. But I look at all of this to say, this is not by any means the worst case scenario for Bryce Harper. When you're getting him back, essentially. You hope it's sooner rather than later, but they're fixing the whole problem. And you're going to be without him for a couple months of the season, but we had an expectation of that already being the case. So the Philadelphia Phillies are going to be just fine. Not worried about them whatsoever in Bryce Harper's absence, to be able to keep everything up, to be able to continue to win ball games. They're a much better team with him, but they're still a really, 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 really good team without him. And for that matter, there's not that many really, 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 really good teams in baseball. You got a couple in your division with the Braves and the Mets. The Dodgers are another one. The Padres will be another one. And then outside of those guys in the National League, who do you have? I don't know. Are the Cardinals still going to be good without Pujols and Yadier Molina, it seems? I don't know. When you look at the American League, what are the Yankees going to be without Judge? He was a huge part of them this past year. Where does he go? It's a weird. The Astros are still going to be good, but you don't really ever play them. This next year, remember, this is a year coming up where the MLB schedule shifts, where you're going to play each team in baseball instead of missing some teams. So less divisional games and more games against opponents you wouldn't usually play. But I just look at all the factors and I say, is it an ideal situation to be missing Bryce Harper? No. But considering you're going to have to, the Phillies are still very well set up to be competitive. There is this drawback, though, and this thing that I've been debating on the radio for a couple days over on 97.5 The Fanatic, and I'll tell you about my thoughts here in the next segment. Why did he wait so long to have surgery? Long break in there, a couple weeks before he got it done, where a lot of people will get it done as soon as the season's over. I'll break down my thoughts on that next because I have an explanation for you. It's not a true explanation from Bryce Harper, but I'll tell you why I feel the way I do and what it means for our expectations for Bryce Harper this year and how critical we should be of him in 2023. I'll break that down next as we continue Locked On Phillies. All right, let me tell you about my friends over at BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. You get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from football to basketball to soccer. World Cup going on right now. The USA, a tough draw against Wales yesterday. But hey, a couple more games. They got England Friday. They got Iran next week. Keep an eye on that. BetOnline's got your lines for that. They got esports. They've got it all at betonline.net. And if you love sports podcasts, I should be able to say the word podcast. I'm doing one right now. You can find those at BetOnline as well. They're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action, because BetOnline is where the game starts. All right, so let's discuss the issue with the Bryce Harper surgery. It wasn't the surgery. Everything went well. Again, Bryce Harper, successful Tommy John surgery underwent. But so the season ends, the World Series run ends. And we know that this surgery has been lingering since, June. It's been going on for a while. That we knew that Tommy John was a distinct possibility. Some type of procedure would have to be done. And Bryce Harper's going to have to get that elbow taken care of. And then a week goes by. And another week goes by. And then we hear from Dave Dombrowski that, in a couple days, he's going to have surgery. And it ends up being Wednesday, November 23rd, when the Philadelphia Phillies season ended back on November 6th, November 5th, something like that. So, yeah, it's been a while. We're talking about 12 to 18 days was the time frame we used this morning on the John Kincaid Show as kind of a frame of reference for how many games that rest and waiting for surgery to happen could have cost him. And some people are mad about that, and I think rightfully so. You'd be upset, wondering, why didn't Bryce Harper have this surgery sooner? Why did he take so long? Why didn't he just jump right into surgery to be back as soon as possible for his team to get this procedure done? Here's why I don't necessarily find myself in that crowd, why I don't agree with people saying that. What are some things we know about Bryce Harper? We know he's an ultimate competitor. He wants to be on that field more than anybody else, to the point where he played through this year to DH to help carry this team to the World Series. He is not a guy to take days off. He is not a guy that takes rest whenever he needs it. Like, he's a guy that likes to play through things, fight through things, try and help his team win at all costs. So when you look at that and you compare it to the actions of sitting for an extra couple of weeks before he gets the surgery, he needs to be back with his team, they don't seem to really mesh, right? It doesn't seem like something like a super competitive guy would do who really wants to be back with his team. So that's interesting to me. We already have some uncharacteristic behavior by Bryce Harper. We also haven't expressly been told anything one way or another. It's not like they've already come out and said, no, he had nothing wrong with him. He could have had the surgery. There are some schools of thought that say, well, maybe after the season is over, because he swung with it. And normally if you're getting Tommy John, you've been shut down. Maybe he needed to let some swelling go down. Maybe there was a situation where he had a little bit of, like, he talked to the trainers that the Phillies have before consulting more serious doctors and said, there may be a chance this isn't as bad as you think. So we're looking at some stuff and we'll let you know what needs to be done. It may be a case that he just went on vacation and didn't want to go right into surgery. And that one would not really be, I would be slightly upset with that one, because you can go on vacation with your arm in a sling. I get it. Like, it's ideal not to have to do that, but you can still do it. My thing is, when I see the demeanor of Bryce Harper and I know his makeup and I know that he's a guy that wants to be out there for this team. So I don't question his desire to be out there. So I feel like there's a possibility that there's something going on that we don't know about on the medical front, on the personal front, something that restricted him from having this surgery. I'm giving him reasonable doubt for choosing to wait to have the surgery. You don't have to. I'm not saying you have to. I'm saying that's how I'm handling it because of the person and the athlete that we know Bryce Harper to be. Not his skill level, but his desire to be out there. If this was an athlete like Fernando Tatis Jr., who's missed the entirety of the season by doing stupid stuff, and then he waited to have surgery, I'd be like, well, maybe that guy just doesn't want to play baseball anymore. Bryce Harper, I have no doubts about that. And here's the other good thing about this situation, right? Because we haven't expressly heard, and it's going to be a while until Bryce Harper meets with media members again. Probably spring training, maybe even after that, depending on what he's doing rehab-wise. But when I look at Bryce Harper, I look at him as a guy who doesn't dodge questions. He answers tough questions. He does not beat around the bush with his answers. He will tell you things that the Phillies need to do better, things that they're doing well, players that need to be called up, players that need to be like that he wants to have signed. He does not shy away from saying what he wants when he wants it. And I can't remember a time that he's ever taken a question from a media member and dodged it. He's a very honest, open guy, which is an important thing in this city. And I think he realizes that. So we're going to have somebody ask him that question. The media here in Philadelphia will absolutely ask him that question at some point. We will get an answer. So that's why I'm not saying you should 100% blindly trust that Bryce Harper wants to be out there. All I'm saying is it feels early to pass judgment on this decision before we get to hear from the man himself who clearly wants to be out there with his team. So when someone does something uncharacteristic of them and you have not yet heard from them why they did what they did, if you trust that person, and I trust Bryce Harper, and I think he's earned that trust by the way he's conducted himself here in Philadelphia, and it also helps he's a really, really damn good baseball player. If you've earned that trust, well, then you wait to hear what that person has to say first. Until we hear from Bryce Harper and why he waited, I'm not ready to cast judgment on him yet for that. So that's me, but some people are. And if you are that way, I could very much end up being on the wrong side of this. We could hear when he comes back in May or June or whenever it is. No, I wanted to go to Cabo with my wife and kids. So, yeah, I waited to get the surgery because whatever, it's a couple weeks. Who cares? That would disappoint me. But I'm still, until I hear that said by him, until I get the definitive answer from Bryce Harper or someone with knowledge of the situation, maybe it's his agent, maybe it's Scott Boras, maybe it's Dave Dombrowski, maybe it's Rob Thompson, maybe it's a teammate. Until I get a definitive answer of what's going on, I'm reserving my right to pass judgment at the time where I have more information because I believe Bryce Harper has earned that right. I think that's fair, but hey, maybe you don't. And if so, we'll be arguing back and forth until we see him or hear from him next and see what he has to say about it. But again, going back to my original point, he's not going to kill the Phillies by missing these games. And I made a guarantee this morning on the morning show on the radio. I'll make a guarantee here. Those games that he misses, we are not going to look back in October and say, man, those games cost the Phillies. We're just not. It's not a big enough sample size. The team's talented enough. They're going to be all right regardless of when he comes back, as long as he does come back and plays for them in 2023. So that's your full breakdown of my opinions of the Bryce Harper situation. That's how I feel about it right now. And again, with new information that may change, but I'm trusting the guy. And he had good surgery, successful. Everything's good there. So hoping for the best for Bryce Harper the rest of the way. And now it's just rehab. And that's not a fun rehab. I've been through some UCL injuries when I played. And the rehab process is annoying. We will see how it works out. But I think it's all good news with the tentative issue of him waiting to get the surgery on the Bryce Harper front. Just one man's opinion. But hey, that's what I think. And I think it won't matter at the end of the day in 2023 because this Phillies team is still going to be super, super talented. But I want to know what you think too. So coming up next on Off the Poll, well, we're going to ask a poll question for the weekend, since this is Friday's episode, about the situation with Harper and how you're feeling about that. I'll break it all down next as we wrap up today's episode of Locked On Phillies. All right, let's do Off the Poll. If you're not familiar with Off the Poll, poll questions on Twitter that we post every weekend that get your perspective. Now, I'm not going to give Well, this one you kind of already heard my opinion, but usually I don't give my opinion out before the poll. But because this was a whole episode on what this poll is going to be about, you already kind of know where I stand, right? But what happens is I'll put the poll question out. You have the weekend to respond on Twitter at LO_Phillies. I'll retweet it from my account at ConnorThomas975. And then on Monday's episode, I'm going to read the poll results, tell you how I feel about it, why I think you voted the way you did, all that good stuff, breaking down all the numbers. It's going to be a fun Monday episode to see what people say about this. A very simple question. Are you upset that Bryce Harper waited so long to have his elbow surgery? That's it. Yes or no question. Very easy. 2 options. Normally there's like 4 options on these things. No, just 2 today. Are you upset that Bryce Harper waited so long to have his elbow surgery? Waited a couple weeks from the end of the season. We don't know why. I said to reserve judgment, but I want to know where you stand right now. Yes or no? I imagine, well, my prediction is that there's going to be more that say they are upset with him than aren't. But we'll see how it works out. And you'll have that answer on Monday when we do the second half of Off the Pole Down. But that's all for today's episode of Locked On Phillies. Thank you, as always, for making Locked On Phillies your first listen every day. We are indeed free and available wherever you get your podcast. Now make your second listen Locked On Sports today. The biggest news from around the world of sports breaking. You can find it on Odyssey, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. Go ahead and check out Locked On Sports today for some great breaking news coverage of sports. They do awesome work over there. So check that out. And I'm thankful, as always, again, with the Thanksgiving holiday just past us at this point. Thankful so much for all of you out there who follow Locked On Phillies, subscribe, rate, review, do all this good stuff. I sincerely appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. Even you Astros fans who are still in my comments about, Diaz didn't lean into the ball and this, that, and the other thing, and Astros were the clearly better team and blah, 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 blah. I'm appreciative of you too. Anyone who listens, anyone who follows, anyone who comments, thank you so much for the support. I really do appreciate it. And I will talk to you tomorrow for a special Saturday edition of Locked On Phillies. That'll be our next episode, and I'll talk to you then.